I'm so about the architecture and the backgrounds, and I'm the first one to say, get that right, because if you don't get that right, you're stuck with it. You're going to live with it. The decoration can happen over time. You can add, you can collect, you can layer. People describe my work as being sort of modern, classical, with a lot of contemporary furniture and art. It's very rooted in my foundation, which started at Parrish Hadley. I have very good roots in understanding styles of furniture, periods, and it all kind of plays into the projects that we work on, which are all very, very different. Parrish Hadley was one of the great American firms, and at a time when there were not so many firms, the business was much smaller than it is today. The phone would ring and the question was, will you consider taking me on as a client? Not, I'm interviewing 30 decorators and I'd like to meet with you and see whether it's a good fit for me. It was the opposite, absolute opposite. My best client is somebody who's fearless. It's all about collaboration. I want them to be open to trying new things. You know, it's always a dialogue. When I describe meetings with potential clients in the beginning, I always talk about it as a first date. And then it's a question of both for the client and for me, do you want to go on a second date? And then is there a third date? So that's kind of the genesis for me of the very, very beginning of a working relationship. I got started in interior design by going to Pratt Institute. My path to getting to Pratt started with horses. And when I figured out that horses were not going to make a life for me, I decided that I needed to figure out another path, which my strength was art. And I put together a portfolio, which led me to going to Pratt Institute. And there I was introduced to the interior design department, and that was the beginning of my future. I'm Brian McCarthy, and my firm is Brian J. McCarthy, Inc. I'm based here in New York City, and we work all over the United States, and we work in Europe. This is now the 33rd year that I've been in business. I've been very fortunate too, because where I live and where I work have always been within a 2-block radius. Today we're in my home in New York City, right across from Carnegie Hall. Our apartment is in a building that was designed by Warren and Wetmore, who were the architects for Grand Central. And this building was built in 1922. I moved here in 1999. And it was love at first sight when I walked into the building. I knew there was a soul to this building. There's a history to this building. Sean Penn lived in this apartment. Barbara Walters used to live in this building. The woman whose name I can't recall who wrote Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. James Spader lived in the building when he was doing a David Mamet play on Broadway. It's a fascinating building with the history. The layout of our apartment is essentially unchanged from when it was first designed. There's a graciousness. There is such a practical, functional plan that this apartment has, where you have this wonderful separation between the private and the public. And I have a lot of wall space. And that is like so critical for me with my art addiction. When I moved in, I opted not to do anything initially. So it was really pretty much a state condition, but maintained. So it wasn't too bad. The apartment had panel molding on the walls. So it had this very traditional, very classical feel, which is something that I had lived with previously in my old apartment. It was important to me to remove that, clean it up, freshen it up. It was essentially linen white, and you know, it really became this layering. And back at that time, I had a lot of 18th and 19th century mahogany furniture. So my way of seeing it was a little bit a la Bill Blass, but, you know, with my own edge. And, you know, that's evolved over the course of time. Welcome to my home. So right now we're standing in the entry hall, and this entry hall actually was an elevator hall that when the building was converted to condominiums, this got it added into this line of apartment, which is phenomenal, getting this additional space. It's also phenomenal because I have so much great wall space. The thinking behind the sequence as you move through the entry into what I refer to as the gallery was that the space as you move down opens to the right. So I really wanted to create a series of spaces that you were moving to before you get to the public space, which led to the idea of doing this very Italianate, rusticated decoration here as a way to separate the wider hall from the narrower hall. It also gave us an opportunity to conceal much needed storage space. So we have double hanging coats in here, a little messy right now, but it's so practical. It just creates this really elegant experience coming in. This is our living room, and this room really grew from the fireplace, which was the very first thing that I purchased. I found it in London with John Hobbs, and that became the linchpin for this room, which then led to the door casings, the baseboard, ultimately the dental molding, and then of course the finish on the walls, which was really the most labor-intensive finish in the apartment because of all the banding and the way in which Mark had to build up the thickness for the surface in order to get this three-dimensional band effect. So this took 3.5, 4 weeks to do. And this was done about 9 years ago. I can't imagine ever changing this room as long as I'm living here. I would say the most pivotal turning point for me, which was really the beginning of the art story, was meeting Claude and Francois Xavier Lalande. Claude was offered these crocodiles that had died at the Paris Zoo and initially turned it down and then thought, wait a minute, what a fabulous idea to make these into a pair of tables. So they are part of an edition of 8. So there are 8 pairs in the world. And that really inspired a lot of the collecting. This is our dining room, and it's a room that we used a great deal. We love to have friends over for meals. We enjoy the quietness of being home as opposed to being at a restaurant. When this was conceived, I really wanted to transition away from the lightness of the living room into a much darker, I like to refer to it as a bit womb-like. It really embraces you, and it's a fabulous background for the art. Originally, this had early 19th century table and 19th century chairs, to then the last commission that we did with Claude Lalande, the chandelier, which is sort of the linchpin of the room, and the Italian dining table with this glass top, and then these Royer-inspired dining chairs. Highlights would be this big diptych by Popel, who was a very important Black artist dealing with social issues and causes, very much a performance artist as well. Then at the back, when I first bought the apartment, we had a view to the GM building on 5th Avenue. That was erased by one of these billionaires' row skyscrapers. So we hung this Warhol drawing, in front of the window, which really creates a nice end to the experience in this room. It's a cabinet of curiosities. Honestly, there are just so many different elements in here. It's a room I love. This room is sort of a laundry room, sort of not a laundry room, but when this building was built in 1922, this was a maid's room. It had a water closet, which had a toilet and a shower, and in the corner there was a sink. There was a washer dryer here, but when I got the apartment, we needed more book space. We needed a place for, all of the housekeeping supplies, for linens and placemat. All this got designed very specifically to meet a requirement that we didn't have. Again, it's why does a laundry room have to just be a laundry room? Why can't it be a place that you display art and do an interesting background? The wall finish was very important in here because you walk by in the hallway and you're looking into the pantry and into this room. It needed to be really in a decorative way finished. So this grass cloth with this wonderful pattern and the cerused oak became the perfect foil. The marble in here is called rainforest. It's Brazilian and it really looks like a rainforest. So it's beautiful pattern and color. The art then played, a major part in this, in some of the humor of it too, which is this is a fly strip in bronze that was made by Louis Kahn, a French artist, which he gave us years ago, that hung in our kitchen in the country. And people used to come in and be horrified that we had such a problem with flies. So that came here, followed by a wonderful, also French artist living in Morocco, Jean-Francois Fortu, did this incredible series of bees. So we got this great bee, and the idea was put it on the ceiling. We just had a friend who's in the art world, who's been here quite a few times, and she walked in here the other day and she screamed out loud, ran out of the room, she was terrified. In buildings today, you generally can't create a powder room. So we were able to remove what was a tiny shower, which gave us more space for the washer dryer, and have a toilet. And so we have this wonderful, very compact, but very much a part of this whole experience in here with the same grass cloth. But it's great to have the luxury of this third bathroom, half bath. Nothing like a guest bedroom when you really don't want guests. So this room became a sitting room, and it's been this wonderful opportunity to do this salon style hanging of art, which is very different from the front of the apartment, and getting this L-shaped sofa here, which is in the style of Dupré-Lafont. It's a bit of a catch-all in this room in terms of things that have kind of made their way from other parts of the apartment, but it all works. It is so comfortable, and we basically live in this room, so it's great. The walls in here are in grass cloth, and really the beginning of this room started around the color of the room being this blue. The carpet is based on a 50s Swedish pattern that we had made. Actually, the pattern doesn't end at the wall. We left a border so that it really feels like a rug in this room. And then the art experience. Which is, again, you've got Channing Hansen, which he dyes and knits. It's all mathematical theories that he's working from to create this abstraction. It's mind-blowing what he does. And then we could not have an air conditioner in here because there is a carved lines mask below the window. We ended up doing big ass fan on the ceiling, which I'll never forget being down in the Dominican Republic and in the waiting area at the airport where they have giant fans because it's an outdoor space, and you could see big ass fans. So I love the name and I love the fan. The bedroom in its previous form was all white. It was shades of white. And when we were doing the bathroom several years ago, we decided that the bedroom really wanted to be a warmer color. The carpet is the carpet that we had in the previous bedroom, but since redone, it really creates this wonderful sort of camel, soft, warm background, which is also surprisingly such a good background for the art. And then you've got here this wonderful cabinet that Caleb Woodard made for us, which has watch drawers and I have books in there. And so it's a really practical storage piece. The mixing of the patterns in this room, I think, is so successful because it's a very eclectic carryover from earlier in our lives. So everything has this dialogue. Somehow it works. If I laid it out, it might not have evolved quite this way. So again, I go back to evolution. So doors and door hardware. One of the most important things for me is hinges. This is all P.E. Guerin, which is made in New York. It's the oldest manufacturer of hardware in the United States. They do it all on the premises. It's amazing. You start talking about the importance of hardware with clients and they don't get it. And then you bring them and you show them the difference and the jewel-like quality that you get. These are called olive knuckle hinges. I love the shape. You have a beautiful, actually the bronze plates that get set into the doors, and then this wonderful hammered oval doorknob. It just, again, it's all about the finishes. It's all about the backgrounds. And these are really important elements. When I moved into the apartment, the toilet was right here. There was a vanity right there and a shower. The vanity had absolutely no counter space at all. So when we decided to redo the bathrooms, this became an exercise of how to make the most out of a relatively small pre-war bathroom. So we did this bow-fronted commode, which is all fitted out with drawers. So this really comes in handy in an apartment where you don't have a tremendous amount of storage. And then, the marble was step one. Step two was P.E. Guerin in this fabulous deco hardware, which is one of my all-time favorites. It just functions. It's a great bathroom and I love it. Our home today feels like our home. It's so reflective of us. It's very instinctive. I love to try things. I love to move things, and anybody can do that. Even if you know nothing, it's so important to try to make it feel like it's your own space. You can have the intellect but without the instinct, the intellect means nothing. I don't like a static home. I like a home that grows, that moves with time, that moves with you, and that has been, my lifetime living in this apartment.